great, cool. Thank you,
Can
Garnett.
you see my video?
Yeah, I can see your video. It's cool. I can see your video. Thank you again for joining me for this episode of my career journey. And essentially, as debriefed, we're discovering people's career journeys. So I have a couple of guests joining us, talking about the experiences, with the hope to inspire our students to think, to be inspired in terms of like launching their careers after LU. So maybe to start it off, I'd like for you to introduce yourself and tell us what you're currently doing.
Hi everyone. My name is Garnett Achieng. I am from Kenya. I graduated from ALU, Rwanda, in February. Oh my God, I almost forgot. In February of this year, 2021. And I was a Global Challenges student, and I'm currently a digital rights researcher at Policy, which is a civic tech organization in Uganda.
Awesome, cool. So the reason why I thought your particular journey is interesting, I think as you mentioned, you're interested in digital rights, but you're also very passionate about research.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about what inspired or sparked your interest, both in research and in digital rights?
So I think with my interest in research, I just love reading and writing. And I find that a career in research is a lot about that, and also just learning new things. So with, say, a research project, I have to talk to people, whether it's experts or respondents, and I get to learn a lot just from the interviews. And also there's a lot of desk research, which is reading a lot and then analyzing and turning all that information into something that can be presented to different audiences, and like making this kind of mostly academic information accessible to people. So I just find that like enjoyable. And so that's why I think I am well fitted for a career in research. And for digital rights, I'm generally interested in technology and the effects of technology on societies, especially like a gendered perspective of it. So for example, a technological issue that affects people a lot is disinformation, which is like the false sharing of information on social media for malicious purposes. But if I am studying that from a gendered perspective, it would be, okay, how are women affected by disinformation? How is disinformation used as a tool to discredit like women and their work? So I'm generally really interested in that. And I'm also just interested in shifting the perspective of tech news and tech reports in Africa from product announcements and funding announcements to more of, okay, so we have this technology, how does it really affect society? How does having access to loans, like M-Pesa loans, how does it change society? Like what effect does digital loan have on a person's ability to access loans fast and easy, especially in a society where this was not possible before? So just looking at technology, not just from a shiny new product announcement thing, but more how does it affect how we interact with each other as people in a society. And so how did I get into that? So when I started at ALU, I was in the Global Challenges class, and back then, I'm sure it's still the same, we could choose to research what we're interested in. And I had been very interested in feminist organizing in Kenya and Africa as a whole, especially from the digital front. And so I was studying a lot about online movements, even just beyond women's movements, but just online movements and how people use social media to organize. And that then became an issue of understanding how social media affects people in different ways. So, okay, so women are organizing online, but what are the problems they are facing as they're using digital spaces? Okay, we said that digital spaces, it's safer for people to organize on digital spaces as opposed to physical spaces. But then what is hindering them from doing this? And so it grew from that small interest in my research symposium class in year 2 into something bigger, into studying online gender-based violence, into studying other aspects of technology, like how colonialism manifests in the digital revolution currently in Africa. So it just grew from what I was interested in and what I studied in class.
Yeah. No, it all sounds super fascinating, especially because it's not something that we often think about. So how do you create like safe spaces online? I know there's like a lot of
Yeah.
like online bullying, which is like super prevalent. But thinking about like how it affects women, what are like some interesting insights you've discovered so far as part of your research?
I think interesting. Okay. So for instance, so the organization I worked for had a research before I joined them on online gender-based violence in 5 countries in Africa. And they found that 1 in 3 women face online gender-based violence. 1 in 3 women is like 33%.
Mhm.
And this like mirrors the exact effects of gender-based violence offline. And so it becomes an issue where we thought that online spaces were safer, but they're just mirroring the same
Mhm.
dynamics as physical spaces. Something else that's interesting is just what is interesting? How how much people are locked out of online just online engagement. I think people might think it's obvious, but I don't think it's that obvious. For instance, because of the digital divide, like how many people are online versus how many people are offline,
Yeah.
there's also a gender digital divide, meaning like more men are online than women. And so you find that more men are producing content in terms of YouTube, blogs. You'd think it's a very gendered, like you'd think it's a very women, a space filled with women, but
Yeah.
it's not. Like I think it's in Uganda and Ghana, where men are 29% more likely to produce content on YouTube, on blogs, on Instagram, on social media. And then also men are more likely to produce politically oriented content because once again, it also ties back to the amount of violence attached to such topics. Like when women are talking about politics or things that are seen as male dominated, like politics and sports and technology, they get attacked more. And so just seeing other women being attacked online for speaking about politics has an effect on other women. And so they do not, yeah, they refrain from making such content because they're scared of being harassed, rightfully so.
Yeah, no, that's super insane. It's crazy because I was just following this. I believe she's a Kenyan TikToker, and she's essentially like a manager for like sports team. Um, and she was talking about like how when she's like this one time when she was in like a conference with like a team of guys, she was like the only lady in the room. Essentially, she was asked to leave so that the guys could talk within themselves. And then they managed to talk. They got to some conclusions, and they're like, okay, now we need to get approval for this plan. So who do we get to talk to give us approval? And one of the guy was like, actually, like the lady you just told to leave, that's the one you need approval from, which was like very ironic. But yeah, I definitely see like the impact or like how difficult it might be for more women to like share their content online. And I'm curious if there was any particular specific person model activist that kind of like inspired your journey down this particular direction?
Yeah, so one thing I do like when I want to get into a certain space is I look for people already like doing the kind of work I want to do. And I kind of stalk like like professional stalking. So I stalk the work and the type of work they produce. And so one tech researcher I was really interested in, her name is Nanjala Nyabola. She's Kenyan. So we kind of have a similar background. And so just reading her work and studying how she got to where she got to was really insightful for me. So I do that a lot. Like if I know I want to work for a certain company, I think of like mentors or people like I look up to in that field, and I do professional stalking and kind of study how they got to where they are, and I try to like incorporate what they did like as relevant to my context.
Yeah, that's really nice. I like the aspect of I want to see who is where I want to get right now,
Yeah,
and kind of like get to know a bit about their work. It's very relevant, especially if you're trying to get into like an industry you're not like super familiar with, or you're trying to get in very competitive spaces. It's super important to get a sense of like what are they talking about, what kind of work do this person do, and what would it take for me to get there? And the crazy thing is like the information is already online, right?
right. Yeah,
Uh,
no, for sure.
like LinkedIn, everyone is just volunteering their experiences. If you're doing research, there's like a lot of publications available, and it's essentially just like a cheat sheet. Like just go ahead and figure out what we've been doing. Um, what would you say are so you do like roses and thorns, roses being sort of like the positive experiences you've had, or like the pros you see as part of your journey as a young researcher, specifically interested in digital rights, and the thorns being what are kind of like the roadblocks or like the things that you find difficult. What would you say are, let's start with the roses, for being a young researcher?
So I think the cons for I'll start with a con because I can only think of two, I think.
Right.
So um one is that with the type of work I do, I am lucky I get to do it in a small organization. I wouldn't be able to do the amount of work I do in a larger organization. One, because I am not yet qualified per se, because when in like research and to some extent, in research and academia,
Mhm.
an early career researcher is someone with a PhD. I don't even have a
Yeah.
master's. So that's a con, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm nowhere near like early career. Like, yeah, I've been doing research for a while. I've produced work, but I'm still not even considered early career. And the second thing is that, yeah, it takes a lot to get like accomplished. Like I still need more academic validation to do even work on a larger scale, and at some organizations. Like, yeah, I've done this work at a small scale, but a lot of organizations are quite traditional with their research side. Like even a company like Google or Microsoft, you'd need a PhD to do research
Yeah.
for them. Like if you actually just want to be a researcher at these institutions, they do tend to like pick PhDs, and who are often mostly like not Black. Yeah. I think the pros are, especially at my stage, I get to produce like cutting edge research that it's honestly, I didn't even think it was like impressive until I see the kind of people reaching out to me because of the kind of work I
Mm.
have done. Sometimes it still shocks me.
Yeah.
Like the other day, the first report we wrote um, on Afrofeminist data futures, an AI startup in Canada reached out to me to join their advisory board because of that. research. And that I'm still shocked, honestly, because I was just like, okay, so why do you think I'm fit for this? Because I don't know anything about AI yet.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Like that's something you learn, like as in research, you probably don't know anything until you start like going through the material. So that still shocks me. Or how yesterday there's this event called RightsCon, which is like the biggest conference on digital rights. And just to clarify, digital rights are human rights in the digital space.
Yeah.
And I went to this session on disinformation, and one author I really admire, like her face lit up when I joined the Zoom call, and that was really wild for me. Like, these are people I am citing, and they're also like, yeah, I see you, I see your work. So that is really rewarding for me. Like, even if I don't have a PhD, I still have people like validating my work. Another pro is, this is like ALU, like my background
Yeah.
really, really helped me to where I am. So global challenges back then, when I was a student in 2018, 2019, it was very unstructured. So it was a lot of self-led learning, and
Yeah.
like it builds a lot of discipline. Like we had to go out and look for information ourselves. And that is essentially everything. Like when you're given a research topic to work on at an NGO or something, they don't direct you to who to go
Yeah.
look for the material, and you have to sit down and figure out, okay, so I'm researching this information, who do I know in this field? And then you start from there. You have to go through the resources and find other resources. Like you have to be crafty.
True.
Like nobody gives you access to journals, because I'm not affiliated to any institutions. I have to be crafty in how I'm getting those papers. Like it's literally like being at ALU. And also, just to add on to the global challenges experience, career dev. I remember in 2019, so I was quite close with George, the career dev manager then, well,
Yeah.
relatively close. And I remember he was asking me what kind of internship I wanted, and he forwarded me something, and I said, I don't want it. I really want something to do with research.
Yeah.
Like I was very interested in that. And then I think the African Wildlife Foundation was looking for a researcher at the time, and I interviewed for the position and I got it. And it was like baptism by fire, because I was all alone. The team was in Nairobi. The team I was working with was in the US, but then the other teams are in Uganda and Nairobi. And so I was alone in Kigali, and I had to do desk research and field research in Uganda
Yeah.
on a topic I didn't know anything about. So I wasn't even like with global challenges, you can like learn everything. Conservation was like the least of my interest. I was even more interested in climate change than wildlife conservation, but I had to sit down and learn about wildlife conservation in Uganda. At a point, I had to come up with recommendations on what AWDF could do. And here I am, um, a Kenyan who's never been to Uganda. The only experience I got was actually going into the field in Uganda and interviewing people,
Yeah.
and then coming up with insights that I felt was right from that and desk research. It was wild, honestly, because
Sounds
I did this all alone, but I enjoyed every bit of it. And I think that's what made me realize that I wanted to do more of this work. And I remember one of the AWDF directors, I think she's the director for Europe or something, she came and said, oh, we used your recommendation for a grant we're applying for at USAID. And just that gratification, like that was a huge pro for me. And the fact that my work literally mirrors all the things I'd been doing at ALU. So I really, really like that.
It sounds like such an interesting journey of like self-discovery and like
It is.
pushing your boundaries, especially like in a space where you're not like really familiar with the knowledge and you have to like make recommendations to people who are experts in the field. Like, what
Exactly.
does that feel like?
I mean, it is scary because I mean, just the other day we finished this paper on how colonialism manifests in like digital economy in Africa. And I'm still anxious about that paper because I'm like, oh my God, I still feel like I made such huge recommendations
Yeah.
and such strong claims. Maybe I didn't speak to researchers as much, but then yesterday, somebody who's already in the field gave us feedback, and they're like, "Oh, we really like the paper. We'll definitely be quoting it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So it's still it's still something I'm getting used to, honestly.
Yeah.
Some projects you still feel like, oh God, this is so much bigger than me. And some you're like, yeah, I can body this. I've been doing this work for years. But I think the one thing that I gained from the early experience is that you always have to be learning. You always, yeah, the one day they'll give you a paper on AI. I don't know jack about AI at the moment. And I have to sit down and read about it. It's like consulting, like management
Yeah.
consulting. They never know anything, right? So you just have to sit down and learn everything and then project expertise. I learned that from my class, Governance by Shara. Shout out to Shara.
Shout out to
But yeah, I still remember things I learned from school. So that's really important to me.
Unless you get to like use things that you actually learned about. Because I think like one thing that tends to happen once you graduate, you're like, what did I learn again? And like, how do I apply it in the real world? The disconnect is real. But seeing how not only you're able to apply it, but you're also able to like still draw lessons from it in terms of like, I need to own my experience. Like I can't sit and wait for people to tell me what to do. I need to go in the field. I'm expected to like find like produce results and not just like wait for people to like tell me what to do. It's super impressive that you're able to like still embrace that even after graduation. You've talked a little bit about the cons of your journey as a burgeoning or like a young developing researcher. Are there like anything that you're trying out to try and mitigate that? I know one aspect of it will definitely take time in terms of securing the credentials that will give people more faith into your work. But are there any other things that you're considering to like help you on that journey?
I mean, just more networking and talking to people in the field. Yeah, because there are people in the field who don't have those qualifications and they're producing work. So yeah, just more networking.
Yeah. Sorry. Um, Great. Sorry if you see me looking. I'm just like checking some of the questions.
No, that's okay.
Bringing it back to yourself, say in high school, you just graduated high school and you're considering, okay, what's my next step? Can you take us back to like your mind when you just graduated and you're trying to like figure out what you want to do next? And how did it bring it to the person that you are right now, like the career that you're pursuing right now?
So one thing about me, like when I graduated from high school, I was very ambitious. I think way more ambitious than I am now. And so I just wanted to get into an Ivy League school. Like that was all I wanted. I did not care about like a university in Kenya. I just wanted, like even as I applied to school, so I applied to all the Ivies. I didn't even get support. I was just like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I was really, really ambitious. And I really wanted to go to NYU in Abu Dhabi. And so I'd gotten into law school in Kenya, but I wasn't interested in it. So I think that's okay. The first lesson you can draw from that is just because you're young, it doesn't mean you don't know what you don't want. Because I went to law school not because I wanted to, but because my parents thought it was like, okay, you have an A, so why would you go do journalism? I was interested in journalism. Another thing I learned along the way is that I probably didn't need to focus on a specific degree at that moment. I value an education that's quite interdisciplinary and that allows you to explore so many things. Because back then I was interested in just studying literature and creative writing, and that was all I wanted.
Yeah.
even because I wanted to go to an Ivy League school. That's what I wanted to do. And I still want to do that. But in being able to explore other topics, I saw how my interests can still mesh with those other topics and how I can make something out of it. So yeah, that's good. Yeah, sorry. That's a great lesson I learned. And the third lesson was how to deal with rejection, because I got rejected from all the US schools I applied to, all 8. And I was depressed. I was depressed for a
Horrible
really long
experience.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was depressed. I was crying. I think for a month I wasn't talking or anything, because I was this like young ambitious girl, and like I feel like all my dreams had been shattered. And so just it gave me an early lesson in like not accepting, but like, yeah, rejection happens.
Yeah.
And then I think the last lesson is reach out to people, because as I was applying to schools, I did the SATs by myself. I tutored myself, and I did get a good score, but I'm sure if I'd reached out to people, I would have gotten a better score. I'm pretty sure I would have gotten in if I had help.
Yeah.
Back then, I think a factor is I didn't know where to get help. Like the only place I knew was like the American Embassy, where I just go and take out books and like
Yeah.
and SAT papers and all that. But I didn't get like people to like look at my essays and all that. And essays are really important in the like how you tell your story
Yeah.
is really, really important. And so I didn't get help with that. Like I was doing it by myself. It felt overwhelming, and I should have reached out. And yeah, I should have. Learning how to reach out to people is something that's really important. Yeah.
Mm. No, I can definitely say you came out of the other end like shining and blazing because you are definitely like one of the students that have proactively took ownership of like your career journey and like confidently like stepped up to like ask for the support you need to seek out opportunities that excite you. And I think that's really at the base. You mentioned the part of like being okay with rejection or like learning to accept rejection. And I think it's all part of the journey, like getting to a place where you're like, you know what, I might not know exactly what I'm going for here. I might not feel confident in like the specific skills that I'm offering, but like I want to try out stuff, right? Like I
Yeah.
want to try out stuff, and if I fall flat on my face, that's perfectly fine. Like it's part of the process. So yeah,
Thank you for
definitely.
the kind words.
No, absolutely. It's still super inspiring. And one thing that I would say personally I loved about your work as a young professional, so to speak, um, is the branding aspect of it. You talked about like being able to tell your story. And one thing that we're trying to like help students do is like get to that point where you're like, um, this is what I'm all about. And this is what I want. I'm discovering what like I want to offer. One thing that we tend to see, especially like on resumes, or like one thing that's tempting is like bringing out like those cliche word about like being a critical thinker and like being self-driven and like being a good communicator and such. Um, but there's also an element of like just talking about something that you're passionate about. Could you share what's sort of like a mindset going into crafting your personal brand?
Hmm. Mindset when it's crafting it. So this is something I'm also still learning, but I think the biggest lesson I've learned in personal branding, just besides from having like a LinkedIn profile that is that looks great, and like a portfolio or a website, I think another great aspect is positioning yourself as an expert or a thought leader or somebody growing in knowledge in a particular field. And I say this because, like, that's something I have noticed, and it was also the best advice I got. Like, you probably, as like an ALU student, you are probably passionate about a certain idea.
Yeah.
I think 90% of ALU students are like relentlessly passionate about something. And so you need to share that passion to the world through writing, or if you're not a good writer, you can create YouTube videos. Just make sure you're sharing that content publicly, because even if you're not an expert, it attracts you to like people already in that field, people who have a similar mindset, and it also positions you as somebody in that field that's willing to share their opinion on something. Like, you and 100 other people could have the same idea about something, but what sets you apart from the other person is like who publishes it and has their name on it. Yeah, somebody was thinking about the same issue you are, but they didn't write about it. So nobody's going to think about them. Everybody's going to think about the person who created work about it and shared it. And I think that's the biggest thing I've learned, like even as a student, just having a Medium page where you write, or a YouTube page or a TikTok account where you share knowledge on something you're interested in. It sets you apart from so many other people. And it's a skill, like knowledge sharing, whether through writing or just alternative forms of content, is the best way to brand yourself as somebody interested in a specific field, I think. Yeah.
No, for sure. I like that you just brought the idea up, because I think there's usually sort of like this huge hesitation in terms of like, I don't really know that much, like who am I to like say or talk about this particular topic. Like I can't really produce a good YouTube video. Like I don't know how to edit, I don't know how to TikTok. The element of, just start. It really doesn't matter. If you look at YouTubers, like the most prevalent YouTubers, like the very first videos are cringy.
Yeah.
They're
And
cringy.
yeah.
It's
And
like,
there's also a lot of online content to help you learn.
True. There's like a lot of resources. And like practice makes perfect, right? Like the more you get to try out stuff and like fail and like get that challenge of like learning through the process, the easier it becomes in the future, and the more you can, I'd say, like discover your own personality, your own brand through that journey of self-discovery. So I hope students are getting it, like just start, put yourself out there and like try and be subject matter expert.
And get feedback.
True.
Yeah.
True. Now that you've graduated, and you kind of have a sense of like what's out there, you started like working, what would you say as a piece of advice to students who are thinking about like launching their career after graduation? What's something that you wish to have known before graduating?
I know it's sort of like said a lot and could be cliche, but like take the ALU experience like seriously, like milk everything out of it, like make use of it, make use of career dev, make use of your facilitators, because like they know our facilitators are like amazing, they're like experts. Make use of them, they know people. Make use of internships, like to connect, especially like the world is more forgiving when you're a student, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, especially like it's easier to get a job at a huge company or at a company that would be considered a rich company as a student, because you're probably bolder than like 80% of other students. So if you're the one reaching out to a company as a student saying, here's my portfolio, here's this, I would like to work for you. Yeah, you're more likely to be considered than somebody who already graduated. The world is more forgiving. And take your academics seriously, because like yeah, grades don't matter, but they kind of do. And especially in terms of like where you want to get, I'm sure nobody wants to go to a transcript like with bad grades.
Mhm.
And I also say this because my capstone got me a fellowship.
Mhm.
So I applied for a fellowship that was for mid-career people. And like per se, I'm more early career. Like even if you add like the 8 year experience, I'm more early career. But I am sure I got it because I had evidence that I was interested in this space.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I applied against way more qualified people. But my capstone paper was the one that set me aside as somebody who was actually like interested in this field and has evidence of work, because I didn't have work experience to
Yeah.
boost why I wanted a tech and public policy fellow. I don't have like the traditional tech background. I don't have a public policy background,
Yeah.
but I still got like a mid-career fellowship, and it was mostly because of my capstone. So yeah, take that capstone seriously, especially since facilitators are always ready to like give you feedback, even if it's not your own supervisor. Like there's always a facilitator out there who's ready to help.
Yeah.
So yeah, milk the ALU experience, get everything out of it.
It's crazy that you just shared that, because in the last episode we're talking about how if you're trying to like explore your passions and interests, college is the place to do that. Like if you really
Absolutely.
want to like build your portfolio and like discover what is it that you're good at, experiment during college, because like after that you have the pressure of like figuring this shit out after you graduate, and at the
Yeah.
same time, as you say, like the word is less forgiving. Like people expect you to be at a certain standard. Being an entry level applicant and you're asked to have like at least 3 years of work experience, like that's when things start getting real.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad we're just like coming back to that as well, and maybe shifting the question a little bit. Um, Having been a student as well, what is common things, so to speak, that you see in your peers struggle with, especially, I don't know, like throughout like your experience, right? What is the thing that you felt like your peers were struggling with, and that you would like to give your 2 cents on in terms of launching their careers?
I may not have an answer to that, to be honest. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. I honestly do not know.
It's perfectly fine. I mean, at the same time, like having to like go through, I don't know, I tend to think of like career journeys as a very personal thing.
Yeah.
Like it
Like
might not,
nobody's sharing their struggles.
do you think it's something we should be talking about more?
Yeah, because like for instance, I applied to grad school and I didn't get into any of them. Like, but I won't talk about it. I'll talk about like where I got into.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think yeah, it's important because it shows people like rejections like don't like it doesn't mean all that much.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, it's just a sign for you to like go back and learn more.
And also like the aspect of like getting to like share, to get to learn from like each other's stories, each other's experiences, which I think is do fits into like the purpose of this podcast. Getting to know what others are going through kind of like demystifies the whole experience, where you think like you have to know everything from A to Z for you to be able to be successful. And one thing that I think I've learned from the guests we've had so far is that nobody really knows. We're all like trying to figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
And that is like the beauty of it, when you think about it. Um, yeah, a couple of fun questions. Just going to like the end of this podcast. What's a day in your life like as a
So
researcher?
sorry.
What's a day in your life like as a researcher?
um hmm. So it doesn't look the same because like depends on different stages of a project. So at some stage my day could be full of interviews with respondents and experts, At other days, my day could be like reading transcripts and analyzing it. Other days, it's just desk research. It's not it's not exciting, but I find it exciting. But like, yeah, it's different depending on what stage of like a research project I'm at.
Yeah, yeah. And what would you say is a fun fact about you?
Huh. I think I'm less serious than people think. Like people who don't know me think I am like the most serious person in the world, but I'm not entirely like that. I don't think I fit like the perception people have of me. So I don't know if that's a fun fact.
What do you like to do for fun?
Huh. I like to travel and like make random plans. Yeah. I really like traveling
Is there
to
like
new
a
places.
particular place that you're absolutely looking forward to?
Yes. I've wanted to go to Dakar all my life. So I would love to go to Dakar.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure you're going together eventually, and like fingers crossed for that. Yeah, and that pretty much marks the end of our conversation. It was super exciting to get to hear your perspective on launching a career and get to listen to like all the amazing advices that you just shared. Are
Thank you.
there are there like any resources you like to share or like some of your work that people can check out?
Yeah, you can always find my work linked on my LinkedIn and my Twitter. So
Yeah,
just my name, Garnett Achieng, on LinkedIn or Twitter.
awesome, cool. We'll share that for the students. Hopefully to keep some of them just reach out to connect. Cool.
Sure.
Thank you so much for making the time and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. I appreciate it and have a good day too.
Bye bye.
Bye.